From a heated fight last October to talk of a rematch, the drama in the boxing world continues between Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall. It's time for some boxing drama. Last October, Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall faced off in a highly anticipated fight, with Shields coming out as the winner and unifying the 160-pound title. But Marshall is not one to back down, and she's already talking about a rematch. In an interview with Sky Sports, Marshall declared that she can outbox Shields. Now hold on a minute, didn't she already try that and get comprehensively beaten? Well, according to Marshall, her trainer Peter Fury's tactics had a lot to do with her defeat. In fact, Fury hasn't been her favorite person over the past couple of months. Yikes, talk about throwing your trainer under the bus. But Marshall is determined to get that rematch with Shields, even if it means going to America for the sequel. The only question is whether she'll take another fight before going head-to-head with Shields again. Marshall says she'd love to go straight into it, but there's always the business side of boxing to consider. Speaking of business, Marshall had some words about Shields' ability to sell fights in America. According to Marshall, Shields' attitude is disgraceful, and that's why she doesn't sell. Ooh, burn. Now, as for who would win in a rematch between Marshall and Shields, it's hard to say. Fury might be able to tweak the game plan a bit, but can Marshall really outbox Shields, a master of the sport? We'll just have to wait and see. One thing's for sure though, Marshall deserves credit for wanting to get that return fight and try to set things right. Let's just hope her relationship with Fury remains cordial, or things could get even more dramatic in the boxing world. So let's take a look at how their previous fight went. One of the main things that stood out in the fight was Claressa Shields' superior technical ability and skill compared to Savannah Marshall. Shields' speed, head movement, and footwork troubled Marshall from the start, and she struggled to deal with the variety of punches coming her way, as her own responses were drawn from a smaller toolkit. Shields' ability to use the right tool at the right moment was what really set her apart from Marshall. She was able to adjust and make the best of tricky situations, which is a sign of a truly quality fighter. Marshall, on the other hand, showed that she wasn't just going to sit there, trapped in her limitations and coasting to a wide loss. She changed things up and pushed outside her usual comfort zone, which forced Shields to show the best she had. Marshall's coach, Peter Fury, influenced her style, which became increasingly jerky and feint-heavy in rounds 3 and 4. However, this didn't greatly benefit her, as Shields was able to work out what was going on and catch her on the move. For the early middle part of the fight, Shields was in control and looked like she might run away with it. However, just after halfway, Marshall threw caution to the wind, and she stepped into less familiar waters by committing to her one obvious physical advantage, her size. She got her gloves up and pushed forward in a much simpler way, aiming to put herself in Shields' way and force her out of stance to find openings for shots. This strategy had trade-offs because Marshall doesn't have the technique to generate real power in close, so the chances of a knockout receded. However, it allowed her to block Shields' movement and commit more energy to throwing punches. Shields' response to this new scenario was what likely got her over the line in the end. She realized that Marshall's eagerness to get close was leading her to lean too far over her front foot. In the 8th round, Shields was able to draw Marshall onto some heavy shots, including an overhand right that sent her off balance. Marshall did manage to use some of Shields' own tricks against her, and she had a strong 9th round, largely stemming from walking Shields onto a couple of shots and being able to step around her opponent. Overall, it was an exciting and back-and-forth battle between two skilled fighters, with Shields ultimately coming out on top to become undisputed at middleweight for the 2nd time.
Exactly. You can't do nothing that I do. Nothing. You can sit here and talk, but you're not going to win September 10th.
But she did beat you once before.
If the amateurs matter, sure did.
Tell us about that, Savannah, because Claressa's sort of dismissing that. Is that important here mentally, that you have one over on her?
Mentally, please.
Not to me, because I'm a better fighter.
You the better fighter. Why you don't have 12 world titles?
I will September the 10th.
So I think we're both fighting on the same bill in December, and then we're on a massive collision course for early next year.
That's a huge fight. Would you go as far as saying women's boxing is on a massive high at the moment, but it still needs fights that are going to transcend, and that could transcend, that could be a crossover fight that I'm going to call it a super fight. Is that how you view it?
100%.
Let's break down who was genuinely the better fighter in the Shields versus Marshall showdown. It's like trying to pick the best flavor of ice cream, except in this case, the ice cream is two badass women throwing down in the ring. Claressa Shields, with her quick moves and versatile toolkit, was definitely the more technically skilled fighter. She was like a ninja out there, always one step ahead of Marshall and landing a flurry of punches. Her footwork and head movement were on point, and she knew how to adjust her game plan on the fly. But hold up, don't count Savannah Marshall out just yet. She showed some serious grit and determination, pushing herself out of her comfort zone and trying new tactics to throw Shields off. Marshall's size and power were definitely her biggest assets, and when she started using them to her advantage, things got interesting. Ultimately though, Shields was able to outsmart Marshall and find the chinks in her armor. She saw Marshall leaning too far forward and capitalized on it, landing some heavy shots and throwing her off balance. And let's not forget that Shields was going for her second undisputed middleweight title, so she clearly knows how to handle the pressure of a big fight. So in the end, I gotta give it to Claressa Shields. She was the more technically sound fighter and was able to adjust to Marshall's changes in strategy. But let's be real, both of these women are absolute bosses and put on a hell of a show for us. Can't wait to see what they do next. Now, let's talk about a potential rematch between Claressa Shields and Savannah Marshall. Using the information we have about their first fight, it's clear from their first fight that both fighters are incredibly skilled and have a lot to offer in the ring. Claressa Shields came out on top in the end, but Savannah Marshall gave her a run for her money and showed that she's not to be underestimated. So, the big question is, who would win in a rematch? Well, there are a few things to consider. First of all, it's important to note that both fighters have likely learned a lot from their first bout. Shields will be looking to build on her victory and keep her status as the top dog in the division, while Marshall will be hungry for revenge and looking to prove that she's the better fighter. In terms of their styles, it's possible that Shields could come in with a similar game plan, relying on her technical ability and footwork to keep Marshall at bay. However, Marshall showed in the later rounds of their first fight that she's willing to mix things up and get inside to land shots. If she can continue to do that effectively, it could be trouble for Shields. On the other hand, Shields has shown that she's not afraid to adjust her game plan on the fly, as she did in the 8th round of their first fight when she was able to catch Marshall with some heavy shots. If she can continue to be adaptable and make the right adjustments, she'll be a tough opponent for anyone. Ultimately, it's impossible to say for sure who would come out on top in a rematch. Both fighters have a lot of skill and heart, and it would likely be another exciting and closely contested fight. But one thing's for sure, if they do meet again in the ring, it'll be a fight you won't want to miss.